Sup guys, today we have the answers from developers for the 4th of May 2017. Now before we dig into this, I'm just going to give you a basic overview of what Gaijin's trying to say, because the development plan's set out in a 5 patch period, so every 5 patches they're planned in advance. That means that anything that's suggested in here that says currently in progress, it means we're going to see it by the end of the year, or at that point, middle of March next year, at the latest. So let's dig into this. Firstly, why do HEI-T projectiles from aircraft have larger penetration values than the same caliber in ground forces? Mine gun shot do not count, however the 50mm German cannon found on the Panzer III J1 penetrates 4mm, but on the Me-410 it's 6 to 7mm. The 37mm on the aircraft have 5mm of penetration, but the Ostwind only has 2 to 4. Now before Gaijin actually answers this, it's all to do with muzzle velocity. Because even though there's a 50mm on the Panzer III J and on the Me-410, they have different muzzle velocities, so the penetration factor is going to be different. Let's see how Gaijin responds to this. Answer. This is partially down to the aviation damage model. However, we are working to correct everything that is to the same parameters. Basically, Gaijin said that if the gun, statistics are out of place, or the same firearm is mounted on both the plane and a ground vehicle, they're going to have the same sort of damage potential. They're going to balance it all out, make it even. Question 2. Are there still plans for variants of existing popular low to mid-ranked fighters, such as the P-40, the Bf-110, the Hurricane, the F-4U, the P-47, and the P-51 Mustang? Now, Gaijin's answer to this is yes. Several modifications for these vehicles are in production now. Now, this is good news if you're a fan of any of those previously listed aircraft, because that means there's going to be variants of them coming within the next 5 major patches. I'm personally looking forward to the P-40s, because though it's a humble aircraft, I've always thought it's relatively beautiful, and you can't go wrong with more Bf-110s. Question 3. When the Spitfire Mark V receive their reworked models, will you remove the tropical Vokes filter from the Mark V-B and keep it on the 5C, so we can have a tropical and non-tropical filtered Spitfire Mark V? Or perhaps a premium clipped-winged LF Mark V-B without a filter? In addition, are there any plans for a premium US Spitfire 5-B tropical? Gaijin's answer. Yes, we plan to add several more options for the Mark V, along with remaking of current models, including one without a tropical filter. Now, this basically means they have plans to do it, but it's not going to be within the next 6 months. But if you're a fan of the Spitfire Mark V, soon enough you'll have more variants of it. Next question, question 4. Is it possible to see a premium variant of famous Spanish modifications of German aircraft, such as the Merlin engine-powered Hispano Ha 112-M1L Bucon? I butchered that there. Which is just a Bf-109G with a Merlin engine. And the Casa 2-111, which is just a HE-111. And Gaijin's response is, currently, there are no plans. So if you wanted those two those two Spanish aircraft, which are quite famous if you ever watched any of the World War II movies from the 60s, as any Bf-109s you saw in that, or Hinkles, usually they were one of these. You can tell with the Yukon because it has a air filter underneath the nose, which normal Bf-109s don't have, to accommodate for the Merlin engine. So that kind of sucks, but hey, it'll probably happen eventually. Moving on to ground forces. Question 1. Are there plans for a light tank branch for Germany, or have plans been abandoned? Gaijin's answer. Most likely it will not be a completely separate branch, but we will add the most interesting machines amongst other branches. Something interesting is already planned for the next major patch. Ooh, okay. So Gaijin has basically said, fuck you guys who want a light German tank tree, we'll put that in a ditch and set it on fire, because RU-251 premium bitches. But they have said that in the next patch, with the Italian aircraft, we're getting a light German tank or vehicle of some description. My money is either on the Lux or the, whatever it was called, the original Leopard. Not the Leopard Cold War, but the Leopard prototype, which is in World of Tanks, and it's a pretty sweet looking piece of kit. Question 2. Currently there are very uncomfortable camera positions on the top British tanks, the Centurions and Chieftains in simulator battles. The sight is much higher in the lateral correction everyone else is used to. It is insanely difficult to acquire the desired elevation angle. I understand it seems to be historically accurate, but we do not have sight grids, which historically were on the vehicles. Is there any way to fix this? For example, shift the grid to a clear height. Okay. Answer. There are plans for simulated battle and in realistic battles to improve camera position and aiming positions. Currently the axis of the gun and the sights are parallel, which is not always correct. So basically they may change it if they feel like it down the line. Question 3. Why does the game need viewports and sighting devices? Why should they be modeled and give damageable modules? Answer. Currently these modules represent some protection against secondary armour fragments, especially if the sight or devices are a large size. Usually the more modern the tank, the larger the amount of protection they can provide for the gun. Now I'm just going to stop them right there. Right, I was playing basically the Challenger and the Centurion Mark 1 over the last couple of days. And I've had the APDS shell, which is travelling like 1,200 and something fucking meters a second, be soaked by a viewport, which is made of what, like an inch of bulletproof glass? Like, if you shot something with that, it's not slowing it down. Like, fine, it might soak a few bits of fragmentation, but when it soaks a fucking ultra-high velocity shell travelling nearly at the speed of sound, we've got a problem there. Like, in all seriousness. Rant over, back to what we were doing. Question 4. Why are there no new options for additional armour protection? You said that extra armour would not only be tracks, but also sandbags and individual armoured plates. Will this be revisited? Answer. Currently we are somewhat focused on new vehicles and modules, but the addition of different types of additional armour protection is in planning. In my opinion, what I think Gaijin does when it comes to these extra armour modules is whenever they have someone who's working on 3D models who's suddenly free for, like, say, 2 days or something, he just picks a tank that's relatively popular and he does a sort of additional armour for it. That seems to be the trend, because as it looks currently, most of the additional armour vehicles seem to have been picked entirely at random. But hey, whatever. Sooner or later we're going to get more armour on our vehicles, so that's good if you're into that. Question 5. Are there plans for a Ground Forces Tier 4 Premium? Yes, there are such plans. This is probably going to be an STA 3 or an STA 4. But based on how shit the STA 1 and A2 are, not looking forward to it. I'm probably going to grind it out with a talisman, but either way. Next question. Are there plans for the German Waffenträger self-propelled gun / tank destroyer in the second German tank destroyer line? Ooh. Answer. Yes, there are plans for such a machines. But most likely we will not make a second line of tank destroyers. We will add the machines separately to other branches. Okay, so Gaijin said they're working on a Waffenträger self-propelled gun, which immediately you're all thinking of the Waffenträger E100, but I think it's going to be more in line with the Panther-mounted one, because that was actually built. Not very well, but it was, it got there. And it appears to have got confused, thinking they're asking for a second line of tank destroyers, but the Germans already have 2 lines of tank destroyers. So it's obvious they were asking, you're going to shove it in the open tank destroyer section. But Gaijin says they're going to be added as separate branches, so they're a bit confused, but get hyped, a Waffenträger is coming eventually. Question number 7. Now that the 183mm FV4005 is in-game, is it possible we could get a new British top-tier 183mm heavy gun tank FV215? The tank was developed from a Conqueror and used the same gun as the FV4005. So it would be the perfect successor to the Conqueror Mark II. The tank was classified as both a heavy tank and a self-propelled gun, but it would fit better after the Conqueror as a heavy tank. Answer. Only a mock-up vehicle was built, and we try not to introduce such vehicles without an emergency situation that calls for it. Britain already has the FV4005 with this monstrous cannon, and there are heavy tanks on the top rank, so we plan to introduce other machines and modifications at the moment. So if you wanted basically a Challenger with a demolisher cannon on it, you're shit out of luck for a while. Gaijin's not remotely interested for at least the next 12-ish months. Question 8. Do you have any plans for low-rank US premium multi-turreted tanks like the T-35, A1E1 Independent, Nubenfanswerk, and Type 95? Answer. So far we have not chosen a worthy candidate that compares well to these tanks. This is the big problem that America has. They never really made an interwar multi-turreted tank, because when America was all, chilling in the 30s, they were like, you know what, fuck the tank doctrine, we're just going to build a shit ton of planes. And that's what they did. So they really didn't have one. The closest you get is probably the M2A2, I think it is, the Stuart with 2 turrets, but that's already in game, so we'll see how that pans out. But currently they're looking for one, but haven't found one to fill the role. We're now into the other section, where it's just other generic things. Question 1. Why not give players the opportunity to choose when to activate test drive rewards, just like boosters or wages? The fact is, not everyone has time to use the test drives after entering the game. Answer. There are some technical limitations to this factor. So Guardian's like, we'd rather not do it, we can't be asked. It will require effort, but to be fair with you, I consider the test drives, you've been shot in the foot when you get the Wheel of Poverty. It's like, oh, you wanted the wager for Gold Eagles, you wanted the crazy amount of Silver Lions or something. Nah, fuck you, you get a test drive for the piece of shit Russian, mobile rocket tank, which has no degrees of gun depression, so it's just a piece of shit. No one would buy it, ever. But we gotta get that sweet fucking advertisement space. Question 2. Recently, we have noticed a depressing tendency to cut the size of maps, not only in RB, but also in SB. This particularly affects the top vehicles, in which these maps are very tight. For what reason is this? Answer. Relatively recently, we have, in fact, increased the specific rotation of weighting and bigger maps in sim battles. Currently, they occupy about 70% of the total rotation, and for some maps, additional parameters have been made to the battle area in SB. So basically they're saying they're pissing about with it, but they're increasing the size of the maps, which if you played White Castle, I think that's what it's called, White Castle, recently, you'll notice that they allow you to rove the map quite vigorously. Not as much as you used to be able to back in, the beta, but it's better than nothing. I'm still waiting on fighting in fucking the Battle of the Bulge. That map I've seen 3 times since they put it in the game. I'd like to see that in rotation for Sim. Question 3. Why has the program that added user content, Camouflages specifically, to the game ceased? If this is not the case, then what is the criteria for selecting the ones that enter the game, and why the last few years no camouflage has been added to the game from War Thunder.live? Moreover, for the entire time of the game's existence under the Revenue Share program, not a single user camouflage for ground vehicles has been added, and why is that? Over the past few years is a bit of an exaggeration. They actually added 3 from .live in a leaked patch about, I want to say, a month and a half ago. I didn't cover it because I wasn't making YouTube videos at the time, but there's going to be a skin for the Firebrand, so if you're into that thing, you're getting a skin for it. The reason no new user camouflage for ground vehicles has been added in the game is purely technical in nature. There is no way to make a custom camo so it would work together with the camouflage mask and has correctly preceded what the tank was destroyed. In the future, we plan to revise the principle of adding custom camouflage to the game so that the creators and players make a greater part of this, and it is much easier. Well, basically, to understand why there's not been one for the ground forces, is the way the ground forces skin works is it's basically you put a camouflage pattern on a big square, and then it puts it on the tank in a 3D space. It's why a guy can shit out 100 gold chrome skins for the entire tank tree in 10 minutes. It's just copy and paste. Whereas with aircraft, each 3D model has a unique sort of skin, a base skin which is applied, allowing you to more easily make unique sort of skins. But with the tanks, you're limited to a pattern. A camouflage pattern. You can't have a very unique, one-of-a-kind sort of camouflage, where they drew a kick-ass gremlin thing on the side of it. Because with the way the camouflage works is if you rotate it, it's not going to look good. At least that's how I believe it works. If I'm wrong, please correct me in the comments. Question 4. Is it possible to add small previews in the pre-match menu opposite the currently selected camouflage? This would help visualize the camo and help to choose the best camouflage for the situation. The current names are not always informative, especially ones such as one colour or standard. I can agree with this. I've had the fatal mistake of going into modes with the winter camo on with tanks because I've not been reminded I've had it on. So it's how it is. So the answer, unfortunately, downloading the camouflage information will require downloading the model itself, which will not only be loaded in the pre-match menu. Basically, they're saying it'll increase load times. But, for people with decent computers, it doesn't affect, but we need those people with potato PCs to play, so it's understandable. It'll be a cool feature, but, it is. Question 5. Beyond Italy and France, are there any other major nations that may be considered? Or will the remaining nations be united into an international tech tree of sorts? Sweden, for example, has many independent aircraft and ground forces that could support its own tree. Gaijin responds with, we do not exclude the possibility of introducing machines from Sweden or Czech construction, as well as other European countries, but we cannot discuss the details yet. I wouldn't put your hopes up for an international tech tree until the French have their tanks and plane tree, because it's apparent that they're going to finish Italy first, you know, planes, tanks, boats, even though I'm kind of wondering how they're going to get the Italy tank tree to work without, you know, shoving in like the other smaller Axis nations to kind of fill the gaps. And then they're going to probably move on to France, because France is a good selection of tanks, boats, and, well, aircraft are limited, but they're going to have a problem with Tier 5, but, well, not Tier 5, Tier 4, but after that they'll probably have a pretty solid Tier 5. And that's it. So let's see what people in the comments section are saying. Good shit, good shit. Yeah, it's just, everyone seems pretty happy. There's not been like a fuck you comment this time like the last one. Either way, if you like what you saw here, you know, give us a like, let me know. If you like it, I might continue this content. Keep on gaming, and have a good one.